There are times and situations in life that the only way to describe them is overwhelming, that they're holding you back. And as much as you'd like them to be done, to be over, as much as you'd like resolution, the news actually just seems to prolong things. That sense that the light at the end of the tunnel is actually getting further away. And it can create a sense of both helplessness and hopelessness. The idea of like, God, why would you allow this? Why aren't you moving? And this can be in any area of life. It can be in our health, in relationships, business, financial, whatever it may be. But it's the kind of thing that is so powerful, it has a outsized impact in the rest of your life. This is the situation affecting a friend of mine's daughter. Now, her situation is so personal, I'm not going to give you the details of that. But needless to say, the situation she's facing is so significant, it does impact her ability to live her life. And even more so, it limits her ability to move forward in her calling, all that God has for her, the destiny God has available for her. And she, this week, got the news. But the news was one of those prolonging, that the potential resolution is in the somewhat distant future. And it's the kind of news that just pulls the rug out from underneath your feet, the kind of thing that just sucks all the air out of you, that takes away your sense of hope. It's the kind of thing that creates the idea that all you can do is just hang on. But is that really all? Now, in this particular case, what I really felt like God was saying, and it's a challenge to each one of us, is that it's not supposed to be a prolonging, but it's an opportunity to push. And what do I mean? See, there can be this very passive sense that, well, it must not be God's will. But I have a very clear sense in her situation and a challenge to you and I that what God is actually saying, I want you to push. I want you to push for resolution. I want you to push for the victory. I want you to push, and in doing so, grow stronger. Grow confident in yourself and in Him and in His power to exercise those spiritual muscles. And have a very clear sense, if we don't push, it actually hinders future opportunities because we didn't build up those spiritual muscles. We didn't build to a greater degree of faith and confidence in Him. That it literally, the inactivity on our part, the reluctance to push actually can hinder the plans God has in the future. Now, but how do we push? What's the template? What's the paradigm? How do we actually do this? See, the mistake is to decide, okay, if I need to push, then we go out and make our strategy, our plans, how we're going to address it, who we're going to call, how we're going to, whatever. And that's entirely the wrong approach. And in fact, if it happens to work, it actually reinforces ineffective, poor strategy. See, the way we push is in aggressive prayer first. Aggressive prayer from the sense that Jesus said it so often that we wouldn't just ask, but we would ask aggressively, persistently, with expectation until we saw the response. That we would be bold and confident in coming boldly to the throne of grace. And it's an opportunity to put our feet into the water of spiritual authority. Now, obviously, this can be a controversial subject, with the responses being everything from, oh no, that's all in God's hands, to taking it to the other extreme. But the reality is there is an empowerment there that God has provided. He's delegated to us. And this is the opportunity to begin to, again, step out into that spiritual authority and begin to grow, and let, as we step out, the Holy Spirit guide us and show us what He has available for us. Only after we have pushed spiritually, then do we begin to push naturally. And the best way to do that is continue to push spiritually until you have a sense of what you think maybe in your gut, in your inner being, that God is saying how to push naturally. And one of the things to do that's so important in this case is to kind of tune out graciously all the well-meaning advice you're getting from left and right. People, well, you need to do this, or you need, and just nod your head nicely. But again, keep the focus on pushing spiritually until you have that sense from God on how to push naturally. And in doing so, watch God work. Watch God begin to transform, that He's using that challenge so often, not as a hindrance, not as a prolonging, but He's using it as an opportunity for us to begin to learn, to push, to grow, to mature, to grow stronger, more confident. But it does beg the question, okay, Randy, when do you actually then give up? When do you come to the conclusion that it's just not God's will? And I have a hard and fast rule on this. Paul prayed 3 times for this thorn in the flesh to be removed. And finally, God said no. See, Paul did not allow circumstances to try to dictate his perception of God's will. But he was persistent until God spoke. And God said no, but God in His graciousness explained why. That it wasn't God's, uncaring, but that literally it was about empowerment. That the things that God had revealed to Paul were so powerful that God allowed that thorn in the flesh to persist so that he wouldn't become overly puffed up, so that he wouldn't become derailed in the future. But until we get either resolution or response from God, that we would continue to push. And this friend's story is a reminder to you and I that whatever the challenge, don't wait for the big, overwhelming ones, even in the small ones, to develop the pattern, to develop the paradigm that we push. And we always push spiritually, then naturally, looking for God to respond or bring resolution.